Hey, there we go. Hey, everybody, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Tom.
This is Agency Accelerator, where we talk about how to launch your agency and scale it
Quickly.
because we're accelerating it, you see. If you have an agency that's doing less than $1 million a year, good news. We're in the trenches growing our business through that size too.
If you want to learn more about what we're doing for our business and what we've done to make it more efficient and more profitable, tune in. This is going to be the show for you.
Today's episode is all about the brain meats and how to take care of them. I think Tom and I in the pre-show, we were discussing topic ideas to go through here. And one of the things I think that is not talked about a lot in the agency space is, you, the founder or the micropreneur, the solopreneur, or whatever, a lot of the success or failure of business is here and not anywhere else in the world, right?
Yeah, it's the 8 inches between your ears. That's where a lot of the magic happens for us agency runners, and a lot of times just startup entrepreneurs, in general. Having that kind of focus and being able to really sort of be okay with what's going on in your head as the world around you, literally and figuratively, in I think a lot of circumstances right now around the world. What's going on in the brain for yourself, your own mental health, your own ability to sort of stick it out and really commit to the things that you've committed to. That's what we're talking about today. And I think it's a conversation that I hope more people start having, because it's a very real challenge that I think entrepreneurs, agencies, even just humans right now are really struggling with around the world.
Yeah. A buddy of mine on LinkedIn, Jeremy Barr, was talking today about the inner game. And I think that's like, if you don't want to talk about mental health from a mental health perspective, but just about what determines your success or your failure fundamentally, right? We can call it the inner game if we don't want to use mental health, because that might be a stigmatized term. If you read, a lot of people when they hit like 32 suddenly realize there's more to this than drinking and partying, and they discover Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism, and they go, oh, that's the answer to everything. Or Epicureanism or whateverism. I think learning to start to apply mastery to yourself and not just let the world happen, but rather decide I have an influence in how I let the world happen to me, is, I think, the first step in really owning some of that mental health stuff. The whole theory behind both Stoicism and Epicureanism is the outside world is mostly garbage, because your choice to how you react to it is what's most important. They just took two very different ways to reach the same conclusion.
Trevor, you're speaking my language. I don't know if we've talked about this before on air, but my background's in philosophy, so these types of questions and just thought exercises, thought experiments are very near and dear to me. And I'm happy you gave somebody a shout out. I also wanted to a gentleman by the name of Joshua Haynes. Considers himself a nurture capitalist, not a venture capitalist, a nurture capitalist, because he's supporting founders in their mental health journey as they're going through, debatably the most difficult thing that any founder has gone through, right? Founding and building a company and a team and everything around that. And I do think these, from Marcus Aurelius and all of the, I think, popularized Stoicism thinking in more recent years with, the 4-hour work week and Ryan Holiday, especially The Obstacle is the Way, and a couple other books that he has, these notions of, conquering yourself first as the biggest challenge that, will be in a long series of challenges. I definitely think is worth reiterating. And for those of you who haven't heard of Ryan Holiday or even Joshua Haynes in this case, definitely check them out because they're very impactful books, especially from Ryan's writing.
I do like Stoicism as a philosophy because it brings you, I'm giving you the pop culture version of it. Tom, you know way more than I do. The idea that whether you have everything or have nothing, a lot of how that affects you is perceived, right? I grew up in a relatively poor family where both my parents were teachers. That's not a, you're not well off there. I didn't feel like I lacked for anything.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to a private high school because my stepfather taught there, I saw a bunch of folks who had a bunch more stuff than me, but I still was like, but I don't need that stuff. And you can say, oh man, I want a Beamer, or at least a car. And I was like, well, what would I do with a car, much less a Beamer, right? That's just, I wasn't being stoic at the time. I just didn't like to drive. I like to be driven around instead. But be as it may, I
Well,
think that is, yeah,
there's a saying around that, right? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
you're usually right. Yeah, that's
Right.
very much true. Very much
That's,
true.
I think that takeaway, especially in these types of conversations, right? Whether you can or can't do something, you're probably right.
Yeah.
In that assertion, and a lot of that, decision making and what side of the fence you fall on is what's going on between the ears, right? It's
Yeah.
not these external circumstances that you don't necessarily control, but how can you control your reactions to those external circumstances?
Yeah.
We have down here in our notes here the narrative arc, micro story, macro story. Tell me about that, Trevor.
Yeah. So I think when you think of yourself, you are usually, I would hope, the protagonist of your own story. If you're the sidekick on your story, you've already got brain meat problems and you should address some of that. But if you're the protagonist of your own story, you are, as the founder of a business, proposing a new story. You're saying, hey, look, I'm going to build this thing. It's going to be super cool, I promise you. And part of your role as founder is to believe you can make this be, even though it has no real reason to be. Every founder hallucinates their business into existence with sufficient force of will. And you've got the story you are telling. I'm going to build a business that's going to do this. That's the macro story of what you're trying to achieve. The micro story is the day-to-day, right? I have a good day, I have a bad day. And it's important when you've built the narrative arc of your organization that the day-to-day highs and lows don't whipsaw your overall perception of the business, right? This is a big part of the resilience to survive change, to survive a good day or a bad day. I had Friday, I had a pretty good day last week. I closed a bunch of clients. I was real happy about this. Today, one of those clients canceled their onboarding call. Now, it could just be they were busy, right? Could be they decided they don't want to work with me. Either is true, but not letting that take over my whole brain and be like, oh no, that money that I thought I was going to have, I don't now have. Maybe, like, you could obsess over this, or you could just go, well, I'll find out more, right? The macro story is this is an agency. It builds $1 million engines. We will be successful. Is today a good day or a bad day? I don't know yet, bro. But don't let it distract you too much. Aim towards that arc.
Well, it's your locus of control too, right? There's nothing you can do if, for whatever reason, that particular client all of a sudden had a bunch of funding pulled and they can't afford you, or they some other extenuating circumstance that is just outside of your control, and that's not worth you kind of getting worked up over and really hamstringing the rest of the things that you could do, and really taking a step back because you're rattled, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of grit, being able to come back to the resilience factor of, hey, that one went, there'll be another one, right? There's always a tomorrow, there's always another shot, or to go the other way, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Like there's both sides of that. I'm curious, Trevor, what sort of takeaways you've seen in that vein between grit and the other extreme, burnout, and just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a challenging line to walk too. I'm in the business of validating market ideas, and a lot of founders see grit as, like you hear for Uber or for Airbnb or for other businesses that were Canva, that were long shots, right? That made it. The founder believed enough, it became wildly successful. So never give up, never quit pursuing this thing. That's what true grit is. And I don't think that's true. I think true grit is, don't give up that you can build success, but believe that you can build success. Don't give up 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 that But I think it's easy for folks to think grit means ride this idea to hell or glory. And what you need to look at is there's an opportunity, particularly if you, like I recommend you do, validate or unvalidate ideas very quickly, invalidate ideas very quickly. The bad ideas set aside and say that was never the way forward. I just didn't necessarily know it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find a way forward and pursue it as far as I can. And if it peters out before I reach success, then move again. Grit is that willingness to say, I've been knocked down. I'm going to get back up and maybe I won't run at the same wall again.
Exactly. Right. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Right. That's both sides of this coin. Just blindly going after a vision that you have that's unvalidated, or you don't have any data to back this particular position. I don't know if I'd call that grit so much as just being headstrong, right? Like thinking that you know better than everyone else. When there's really no information justifying that, it's just kind of a dangerous place to be. But grit in the sense of being able to steadily build a methodical case towards a direction because you've gotten validation at different points to say, you know what, I've gotten 10 points of validation up to this point, and this one person says no, but the other 10 were really, really confident about it. I should keep going, right? That's the difference there is, there's actually information backing what you're trying to do. And on the other extreme, burnout is very real. Right? Yeah. Just because you can work 12-hour days every day doesn't mean that you should work 12-hour days every day. Nor does it mean that you'll actually get to where you're trying to go any faster than if you take a regimented approach, taking care of yourself and your team and balance a little bit more than 100% in one direction. You just don't know sort of what your optimal decision-making abilities are. If you're 100% in working, 12-hour days every day, you're going to burn out pretty quickly. And the decisions that you make during those 12 hours are going to be lower quality than if you were well-rested, well-fed, decompressed, for lack of a better term, right? There's a lot of these factors that contribute to burnout, and being able to really think through each individual, personally, externally, health-wise, all of these different dimensions really contribute to your performance as an entrepreneur. And I hope today's conversation, talking about the brain meats here, actually landed a little bit, because there's so many different dimensions here to consider, and to be aware. Awareness is the first step. Right. Just thinking about these things and making time for yourself to decompress at the end of a hard day or at the end of a great day will give you that longevity that ultimately you really need.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I'm sure you as a founder, what's burnout feel like? How do you know when you pushed it too hard and you need to back off?
I would say it comes very viscerally and sort of sudden. It's almost like this realization that, oh my goodness, I can't do this anymore. I've been working so hard in this one direction, and either it's working or it's not working. You're just exhausted, and it doesn't matter how much sleep you got. It doesn't matter whether you took that call outside walking around or if you took it behind your desk in the wonderful blue light that we have. It's this unavoidable feeling of like, I gotta stop. And there was a wonderful graphic actually I saw the other day of scaling, right, like stairs versus going at it as hard as you can at an angle and then just stopping. right? And that's really what burnout ends up being, is either this sustained marathon like pursuit where you are able to methodically go through what you need to do every day in the little ways, all those little things leading up to, an eventual 10-year overnight success, or the inverse of, hey, I worked really hard for a whole year and wow, that was hard. I got to walk away now because, you're just burned out and you don't have any gas left in the tank. Ultimately that comes all the way back to, are you treating yourself with enough discipline to give yourself what you need to be able to execute for everyone else around you? That's really where the responsibility lies for a leader, especially in tech. In my opinion, is to be able to take care of yourself so that you can put on the proverbial, oxygen mask in all of your passengers, right, on this plane that you're trying to get off the ground.
Yeah. I liken it mentally to it's like being a really good pool player and then suddenly trying to shoot pool with a rope, right?
Ooh.
The skill is all there, but no matter how hard you push, you can't shoot pool when all you've got in your hands is a piece of rope because your execution bit of you gave up. And I have had times, usually after I'm sick, because my health is never the best, where I just discover, like, I'll sit in the office and I'll try to make myself do a thing, and you're like, you beat yourself over the head with, come on, Trevor, get up, do a goddamn thing. I'm just like, no, I'm just not, and can't drive myself into action, despite having all the skills and knowing exactly how to do the thing that needs to be done. Just the idea of exerting enough discipline and focus to make it happen is just like I can't.
So there's a last point here that I just want to share before we jump that you shared with me a little while ago, and I have to repeat, which is never 2 0 days in a row.
Yeah.
One is that a 0 day, a nothing day, a sideways day, a I need to take a break day is okay.
Yeah.
Preface, right? You have to give yourself that permission to be able to take time and say, I need a break for a second. But also, right, making that a habit and it being days on end is the problem. And giving yourself that flexibility to take a day, like you need that day to just relax and decompress and get your focus back on, wonderful. And also be disciplined enough to say, I am going to indulge in this day, right? And actually recharge as much as you need to, and then be able to come back with fresh eyes, energized, a full tank of gas, and ready to go after it the next day. And I've certainly adopted that from you, Trevor. I appreciate that sentiment, and it's paid off more than once. So appreciate that.
I like yesterday I had a migraine, weather came in and it wiped out, like, I don't have a good day then, right? So that's fine. I had a meeting I had to bump because I went to the call and I was like, I can't brain. There's no thoughts that are going to happen today. I can literally feel like 30 IQ points fall away when I have a migraine. I've got medicine now where I don't hurt so much anymore. My prescription meds will take care of that. But I can't, like, ideas just don't come. And so I will generally not have a client call if I can possibly avoid it, because they'll be like, what do you think about the Trevor? And I'll go, I don't know how to think. I've forgotten what it's like to possess the capacity. And so, okay, that was a 0 day. That's fine. Back at it today, you go again. I think founders who have some chronic illness, migraines in my case, right, you accept in a way that founders who have perfect health may not. That some days are just not going to have a good day, and you've got to accept it. And even if tomorrow isn't 100 day, right, just don't make it a 0. Get something done. Because the other thing, my son has got ADHD. Super smart boy. But if you give him 2 pages of homework, it cannot be done. If you tell him to clean his room, he cannot do it. But if you say, do half of 1 page, or if you say, clean this quarter of your room, in 5 minutes, it's done. And then the next quarter, and the next quarter, and the next quarter. And then 20 minutes in, a thing that used to be an all-day fight. Go clean your room. No, Daddy, I can't. Go clean your room. I'm crying. Go clean your room. Whatever. Done. That's out of the way, right? Executive dysfunction is what ADHD is in a big way, right? Okay, you've got a 0 day. Your brain didn't brain today. That's okay. Just do one thing. Because if you do one thing, I'm going to bet you realize that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Let me go ahead and do 2 more. Right? Let me do 2 or 3 more. And then before you know it, you had an 80 day when you thought maybe you were going to have a 1, because you got that one thing done. And you did it early. You didn't say, I'll do one thing at 4:25. I'll do one thing at 9:05. And then, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. You know what? Let's go. Let's bring it in. So then you claw the day back. That's the other part is even when you are feeling a little crispy, a little burned out, right? Things aren't right. Take that 0 day if you must. Make sure the next one has something because you might discover you weren't as burned out as you thought.
And it's I think in a lot of circumstances, it's learning that about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like this advice and these talks, this is not, end all be all the way to go. It's we're sharing our experiences here, operating an agency and working through the stuff that we're just working through as entrepreneurs anyway. And the point is to relentlessly pursue the understanding of how you work best, right? To be able to get that insight for yourself so that you can say, oh, you know what? I really like writing emails at the beginning of the day, not the end of the day. Like for me, that's what works, right? Or whatever those patterns end up being for you, it doesn't matter what they are. It just matters that you find them and that you understand that about yourself so that you can just do a better job for yourself. And that those wins will just stack up, and then you have a ton of momentum that you can then share with your team and share with other people around you. And it's a gravitational pull, right?
Yeah.
People that understand the way that their own mind and body works to be able to put themselves in that position to execute against a certain goal, like that's visual. People see that, people feel that, and it will just create so much more magnetism around whatever it is you're trying to do. So I hope this landed well for some of these folks out there. I've been getting at least a handful of messages every time or so that we stream. So I hope this was slightly different than most of our other videos, but also
a very special episode.
I think so. I think it is. We would just need to have these conversations, and it really shouldn't be stigmatized. I think that it's a huge opportunity for just growth when it comes to how entrepreneurs build businesses.
It is. And I think one part we haven't addressed in the brain meets is your brain, as much as I don't like this fact, is attached to a mechanism that requires its own maintenance and upkeep. And if I could be a brain in a box, I would miss tacos, but otherwise I'd be fine. I think, and a lot of founders end up being like, hey, I'm going to sit here. Get my head forward enough here. I'm like this. I'm working all day. I'm probably clenching my teeth because I'm mad. And then my screen's at the wrong angle. And just at the end of the day, everything freaking hurts. And then they wonder why they feel awful. Come a Thursday night. And I think one other thing to consider is the physical health part of making your mental health good. And I'm guilty of this. I know on weeks when I've run, not the first week when I haven't run in a couple of weeks, but the second week consecutive of running 3 times in the week after I've taken a break. The second week, I'm a better person. My brain works better. I can focus longer. I don't have weird phantom pains that make me feel more like 60 than 40. But if I have to take a break for some reason, getting back on the horse is real hard. Because that first week, like every day I'm done running, I come into the house and I just fall to the floor dead because, my body is having to be reaccustomed to the exposure to oxygen. But what do you recommend? What's your routine? What are you doing to try and help keep the physical part supporting the little brain in the box?
My routine is a little bit of a lot of things. So pretty much every day, every other day, I'm doing something different. So I'll either ride a bike, go for a run, go for a swim. There's some days where I say, if I'm doing a lot of email that day, I'll say, hey, every email is a push up or a sit up or a pull up or something like that. That's pretty crazy on outreach.
I would send 2 emails.
So for me, it's just a weekly cadence of trying to stick with, hitting the pool once a week or taking a bike ride. And really like the yoga component, the meditation component is all a part of it. I try to do something different each time I do it. That's just the trend that I'm in right now. There were times where I would do one particular thing day after day after day. The valuable part to me is like the circulation of blood, and I noticed that like my brain just works better. Like I just think faster. I'm able to be more precise with what I'm talking about, or able to be more just succinct with my words, or with an email, able to make decisions faster, things like that. And after a few days of not moving, it hurts, right? And things sort of slog down, and you just kind of get in your ways, and then it's like, oh wow, I haven't moved in a few days. Maybe I should like try to touch my toes or something. I don't know why that's there, but you get the point, right? It's that balance. It's that balance between mental health and physical health, and just the constant pursuit of improvement, whether it's 1% or 0. It's just not negative, right? And that's the long game that you're in, whether you choose to be or not. It is a very, very long game.
It's a very long game. I was recently reading, it's been making its way around the internet. After you're 40, which I'm after 40, you lose 10% of your muscle mass every year, every decade, not every year, God, every decade, unless you lift. Now, I don't lift, but my wife is like, you're going to start, because I don't want you to be, falling over weak old man at the age of 70. I'm like, that's fair. So I have started to do mostly body weight right now exercises, just as a way to, get those gains. I lifted weights when I was 25, and then not much since. So I'm like, I guess I could consider my children weights to lift. I have a 35-pound kettlebell, a 40-pound kettlebell, and a 55-pound kettlebell if I just include my children. But they're very squirmy, and they get mad when you drop them from high.
Why do they do that?
I know, right? They should just fall to the floor and take it like a proper weight.
Oh man, we do not support child abuse on this 100%.
I do. No, not
making this hard, Trevor.
Not
it's supposed to be G-rated here.
That's right. Keep it light, Trevor. Keep it light. This is an entertainment. That's not an entertainment show. It's an educational show. Anyway, all right. Yeah, I think that's the main thing to focus on. Is a lot of founders I know have let themselves get into a bad physical state because work is so much. And I mean, I am including myself here. You're better off saying, let me just walk for 10 minutes a day, than you are saying, I'm going to go run a 10K this weekend, having done nothing for 5 weeks. Because one, you won't run the 10K, or you will and have a heart attack and die. But also, like, burst ability is not the way to really improve the body that's carrying the brain around, right? 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, whatever, something is better than nothing. And then look and say, how do I every day, every week, every month, whatever time frame, be a little more improvement in it, put a little more work into me? Because I have found, in the end, we are really all we have got. And the time that we have spent in improving ourselves is reflected in improvement in everything we do.
That is all too true, Trevor. All too true.
So after this very special episode of Agency Accelerators, I think next up we can talk about sales offer. That's what's currently on the slate for next time.
Yeah.
And how to build a good offer. I think I have a pretty good offer these days. It took me a lot of time to get there. And I think you have a pretty good offer these days, too. We can talk about our bad offers from before and how we iterated into a good one. If that sounds helpful, anybody else, be sure to subscribe on the YouTubes, the LinkedIns, the Twitters, the wherevers on the internets. And we'll see you there next time. Tom, see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.
See you in 2 weeks. See you, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye. Those freaking balloons, man.